Hello teachers. So far in this course, we have covered what makes a good question and how to build a strong competency-based assessment that truly assesses students' conceptual understanding. Now, we come to the most important step in the whole assessment cycle, looking at student performance data and planning the right remediation. After all, this is the very purpose of an assessment. After any assessment, we typically look at how difficult the test was, how many students scored low, and which concepts they struggled with, and then rediscuss those areas and give more practice. Today, we go deeper with respect to the last 2 points. First, we will learn a clear and systematic way to identify the actual misunderstandings or misconceptions behind students' wrong answers, so that remediation becomes focused and effective. And second, we will look at how to plan and carry out that remediation properly, and how to improve our day-to-day teaching by keeping these common misconceptions in mind for future classes. Let's start with the first part, identifying student misconceptions. In a typical competency-based assessment, we use both MCQs and CRQs. CRQs help us understand individual learning gaps in detail because each student writes their own answer. MCQs work like a diagnostic toolbox. They let us quickly identify common misconceptions across many students at once because each option in a well-designed MCQ reflects a specific way of thinking. So what is a misconception? A misconception is an incorrect understanding of a concept, usually formed due to errors in classroom teaching, prior learning gaps, or incomplete understanding. Let's see how an MCQ helps us identify them. In this grade 6 question, students are asked to identify the fraction of the shaded part. The correct answer is option D, 1 by 8. One shaded part as the numerator and 8 total equal parts as the denominator. Now look at the wrong options. Option A, 1 by 3, shows the student divided the number of shaded parts by unshaded parts. Option B, 1 by 4, shows that they used shaded by total logic but ignored the equal sizes rule. Option C, 1 by 7, shows they applied the equal sizes rule but not the shaded by total logic. This way, each option in an MCQ can point to a specific misconception students may have, helping us diagnose misunderstandings effectively. That is why MCQs are considered diagnostic tools, and we typically use only MCQs from an assessment for analyzing and understanding student learning. Now, let us look at how to systematically identify student misconceptions using assessment data. Imagine a sample test conducted for around 1,000 students, where we have both the overall performance for each question and the percentage of students choosing each option. We will use a 3-step process. Identify areas of difficulty. Start by listing the questions where students are clearly struggling. As a thumb rule, look at 2 things. 1. Questions where the average performance is below or around 60%. Here, the wrong responses may even be variedly distributed across all the options. 2. Questions where 20% or more than 20% students chose the same incorrect option. Together, these 2 filters give us a short list of questions worth a deeper look. Step 2 is to examine the nature of errors. Not every low-performing question indicates a misconception. So before we plan remediation, we analyze each shortlisted question along 4 lenses, using examples from the Grade 5 Environmental Science EVS paper. First, check whether the question is recall-based. Take an example like this. This kind of question simply tests students' ability to recall a piece of information. If many students get it wrong, teachers can strengthen their teaching practices so that students remember important facts. But by itself, a recall question does not uncover a deeper conceptual gap. So when we are looking for misconceptions, we should give greater attention to questions that assess understanding and application. Second, check whether the wrong answer is really a misconception or just an error. In this example, the question asks students to identify the role of skin as an excretory organ. 27% of the students chose option A, that the skin helps us sense touch, pain and temperature. There can be 2 reasons for this. 1. Students may have confused the external sensation words touch, pain, and temperature with the excretory function of the skin. 2. They may have simply missed reading the word excretory and picked the first plausible statement about skin. The second is not a flaw in their concept, it's a test-taking error. So in such cases, the teacher should first check with the students why they chose that option. If a term was misunderstood, re-explain it. If it was a careless miss, train them to read more attentively. Only when a large group of students consistently choose the same wrong option for a clear conceptual reason can we treat it as a genuine misconception. Third, look at the quality of options. The most useful questions are those where each wrong option reflects a specific way of thinking. Let us see this question. The students are asked to identify the work of the central government out of the given options. 23% chose maintaining law and order in Andhra Pradesh, actually a state government job. 63% students chose the correct answer, where they could recognize that constructing a new railway line across states is the work of central government. Providing drinking water and constructing new city road within a city comes under the local government duties. Similarly, in question 12, 20% chose law and order as a criterion for judging the best performing local body. Again, this is not a local body matter. Both these questions are therefore areas where a clear misconception lies. Different questions can reveal different misconceptions on different topics, and each one can be discussed and remediated separately. Finally, filter out weak questions. If the options don't reflect meaningful thinking, the question only tells us that the student got the answer wrong, not the reason. Take a look at this example. Except for one option, all other options are simply off-topic slogans. So there is no specific misconception to uncover. Such questions may still be discussed in class, but they offer little insight to inform our teaching for future classes. After applying these 4 filters in step 2, we are left with the questions that give us real, actionable insights. From this grade 5 EVS paper, 2 clear misconceptions emerge. And as we just saw in the above examples, both happen to point to the same conceptual gap. Why does this systematic approach matters? When 2 questions point to the same misconception like this, one focused remediation can address both. This approach matters because instead of broadly reviewing every difficult question, it lets us target specific misconceptions, save valuable class time, and make remediation far more effective. And even if option-wise data is not available to you, you can still apply the same lens. Look at each low-performing question, examine its options carefully, and anticipate the likely misconception. Think of this as a habit of mind, not just a process. The deeper you look at why students went wrong, the more precisely you can correct it, and even prevent it from forming in the next batch of students. Now comes the equally important second part, planning the right remediation. Here is the most important idea to keep in mind. Remediation is not reteaching. If we simply repeat the same explanation, students will fall back on the same thinking and arrive at the same wrong answer. A misconception is a stable belief in the student's mind. 3 principles guide effective remediation: surfacing the misconception, making students predict, observe, and discuss, present the corrected mental model. Let's apply these to the misconception that we saw before. 23% of the students believed law and order in Andhra Pradesh is a central government matter. In reality, it's a state subject. The center handles matters affecting more than one state, like railways. Students don't hold a sharp picture of which subjects fall under which level. Let's design a 3-step remediation around this. Step 1. Surface the existing belief. Begin the lecture with familiar questions like, when law and order is troubled in our state, who is responsible? The Prime Minister, the Chief Minister, or the village Sarpanch? Students will offer different answers. Note them on the board. Resist correcting yet. The goal is to make their thinking visible. Step 2. Making students predict, observe, and discuss. Create a sorting activity using 6 situation cards. Things like building a highway between AP and Telangana, repairing roads in Vijayawada, posting the army at the border, and most importantly, maintaining law and order in Andhra Pradesh. Ask the students to predict and sort them into 3 columns: central, state, and local. Let them discuss and disagree. Then reveal the correct sorting. Some cards land in surprising columns, and that surprise is the real moment of learning, far more powerful than any upfront explanation. Expanding on the sorting activity, build the corrected understanding by making a few students explain their choices, defend them, and discuss with the peers, and finally arrive at the correct understanding. To solidify the students' understanding and provide more clarity, now explain the concept clearly. Draw a 3-column chart: center, state, and local. Add a few more examples in each category. Teach the simple rule that decides everything. Who is affected determines who is responsible. Matters affecting more than one state, like railways or defense, fall under the center. Matters within one state, like law and order or state roadways, come under the state. Matters of a town or village go to the local body. Now refute the misconception directly related to the question in the assessment. Even though law and order sounds like a big national matter, the people affected are within one state, so it's a state job. Naming and refuting the misconception is what makes the change stick. Anchor the new idea with a relatable analogy and retest. Compare the country to a school. The education department for the entire state and beyond, that is the central government. The headmaster decides things for the whole school, that is the state. And your class teacher decides things for your class, and that's your local body. Finally, give a fresh parallel MCQ that tests the same concept in new wording. If most students now correctly distinguish central from state, the misconception has shifted and the remediation has worked. Equally important, how do we teach this concept from start? First, when introducing government in earlier grades, present all 3 levels together: central, state, and local, and what each handles side by side. Second, teach that simple rule: who is affected decides who is responsible, from day 1. Third, use real current examples, newspapers headlines, local events, so students see the concept in action. And fourth, use short formative MCQs during the lesson, not only at the end. They surface misconceptions while the lesson is still fresh. Now, designing a remediation lesson for every misconception in every test can feel like a lot of work. The good news is, Andhra Pradesh has been developing a library of misconception posters. 1 poster for each misconception identified across grades and subjects. These posters are now available on the Diksha platform for every teacher to access and use. Each misconception poster is built around 5 clear components: the actual question, the question's performance, option by option, so you can see at a glance which wrong option attracted the students, a short clear description of the mistakes students are making, a detailed explanation going option by option of why students may have chosen each wrong answer, a ready-to-use remedial instruction with practical strategies a teacher can take straight to the classroom. You can access these posters on Diksha by searching misconception poster. The link is on your screen. Use them as your starting point. Let's quickly recap. Identifying misconceptions is a 3-step process. Shortlist questions where students struggled, examine the nature of those errors using the 4 lenses, and pinpoint the true misconceptions we're targeting. Planning remediation is the other half. Remediation is not reteaching. 3 principles guide effective remediation: surfacing the misconception, making students predict, observe, and discuss, present the corrected mental model. And we plan our future teaching to prevent these misconceptions from forming in the first place. And remember, you are not alone. The misconception posters on Diksha give you ready-made support. Pair them with your classroom touch. When we use assessment data this way, every test becomes more than a score. It becomes a window into how our students think and a clear guide to what to teach next. Thank you for joining this session. We look forward to seeing this approach come alive in your classrooms.